Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Hub. Today's story is one of my favorites.
You know how some stories start with once upon a time? Well, mine starts with I was running away from my life and I didn't even know it. Picture this, me, Scarlett, 32 years old, standing in the parking lot of Mountain Creek Temple. At 7 in the morning, holding a perfectly organized suitcase and wondering what the hell I was doing there. The brochure had promised inner peace through mindful silence, but honestly, I just needed somewhere my ex couldn't find me to ask for her grandmother's ring back. The temple sat nestled in the North Carolina mountains like a secret someone had forgotten to share. Pine trees towered overhead, their branches creating a cathedral of green that made even my skeptical heart skip a beat. The air was crisp, clean nothing like the recycled salon air I'd been breathing for the past 8 years. No chemical smell of hair dye, no buzz of blow dryers, no endless chatter about weekend plans I'd never be part of. I pulled my suitcase. From the trunk, yes, it was packed exactly like she'd said. Everything folded with military precision because if I didn't control something, anything, I might just dissolve into the mountain mist entirely. "Welcome to Mountain Creek," said a serene woman in flowing white robes. "I'm Sister Margaret." "You must be Scarlett." I nodded, suddenly feeling overdressed in my designer jeans and carefully chosen casual sweater. Around me, other retreat participants were arriving, mostly middle-aged women with yoga mats and crystals. A few men who looked like they'd stepped out of a meditation app commercial. Everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing here. Everyone except me. "The first rule," Sister Margaret continued, "is silence. For the next 5 days, you'll communicate only when absolutely necessary. This is your opportunity to listen to what your soul has been trying to tell you." I almost laughed. My soul had been pretty clear lately. It was tired, angry, and apparently had terrible taste in women. But then I saw her. She was standing by the welcome table, adjusting the settings on a professional camera that looked like it cost more than my car. Wild dark curls escaped from what was supposed to be a messy bun, but looked more like she'd stuck her finger in an electrical socket. She wore paint-stained cargo pants and a flannel shirt that had seen better decades. And when she looked up and caught me staring, she had the audacity to wink. Actually wink at a silent retreat. "I'm Genevieve," she whispered, completely ignoring Sister Margaret's proximity. "And you look like you'd rather be anywhere else." I should have walked away. Should have followed the rules, found my assigned cabin, and spent the next 5 days in blissful rule-following silence. Instead, I found myself whispering back, "Is it that obvious?" Only to someone who's been running from things longer than you have. And that's how it started. Not with lightning bolts or orchestral swells, but with a shared moment of rebellion against imposed quiet. The retreat schedule was mercifully simple: morning meditation, mindful walking, afternoon reflection, evening circle. I'd signed up expecting to spend 5 days alone with my thoughts, maybe finally figuring out why I kept attracting women who saw me as a pit stop rather than a destination. But Genevieve had other plans. During our first group meditation, I opened my eyes to find her openly chewing gum, the picture of peaceful defiance. When Sister Margaret mentioned maintaining sacred silence, Genevieve caught my eye and made an exaggerated she gesture that had me biting my lip to keep from laughing. At lunch, a quiet affair of quinoa and enlightenment, she slipped me a note written on a napkin. "Meet me by the creek after evening circle. I have something to show." "You." I should have said no. Should have crumpled the napkin and focused on my spiritual journey or whatever. But there was something about the way she wrote, like her words were dancing across the paper, that made me fold it carefully and slip it into my pocket. That evening, as the sun painted the mountains in shades of gold and amber, I found myself Walking the worn path to the creek, the water moved lazily over smooth stones, creating a soundtrack of gentle whispers that seemed to encourage secrets. Genevieve was sitting on a weathered dock, her camera beside her, feet dangling in the water. She'd changed into a sundress that looked like it belonged in a different decade, and her hair was loose now, catching the last light like spun copper. "You came," she said, not looking up from the water. I'm starting to question my judgment. Good. Questioning is the first step toward interesting. I sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectable distance. "What did you want to show me?" She gestured to the view mountains rolling into the distance, the creek reflecting the sky like a mirror, fireflies beginning their nightly dance. This, all of this. But mostly the way you look at it. How do I look at it? Like you're seeing it for the first time. Like you've been living in a world drained of color and someone just handed you a paintbrush. I stared at her, this woman who spoke in metaphors and wore her heart so openly it made my chest tight. "You don't know anything about me. I know you pack your suitcase like you're building a fortress. I know you chose the cabin farthest from everyone else. I know you haven't really smiled since you got here, except for when you're trying not to laugh at me breaking the rules." The accuracy of her observations should have been alarming. Instead, it felt like someone had finally seen me. Really seen me for the first time in years. "So, what's your story?" I asked, deflecting. "Are you actually here for enlightenment, or are you just a professional rule breaker?" She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze. "I'm a photographer, travel photographer specifically. I go to places, capture moments, then leave. It's a good life for someone who's allergic to staying still. And you're here because ... Because I got tired of looking at the world through a lens. Sometimes you have to put the camera down and actually live in the moment you're trying to capture." We sat in comfortable silence then, watching the fireflies begin their ancient dance. Her presence beside me was warm, solid, real in a way that made my carefully constructed walls feel suddenly fragile. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "Depends on the question. What are you running from?" The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. I could have deflected again, changed the subject, made a joke. Instead, I found myself answering with the honesty that surprised us both. Love, I think. Or what I thought was love. My ex-Claire she left 3 months ago. Said I was too intense, too much, too ... present. Apparently, I love like a house fire. And she needed someone who loved like a candle. And you believed her? I believed her enough to come here and try to figure out how to love less. Genevieve turned to face me fully, her eyes serious for the first time since we'd met. What if the problem isn't how you love, but who you've been loving? The question hit me like a physical blow. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true in a way that made my breath catch. "You don't know me well enough to say that." I whispered, "Maybe not. But I know enough to see that you're not too much of anything. You're exactly enough for the right person." That's when she did it, reached over and brushed a strand of hair from my face, her fingers lingering against my cheek. The touch was soft, questioning, an invitation rather than a demand. "Genevieve, I know. We're supposed to be finding ourselves, not each other. But what if finding each other is part of finding ourselves?" I should have pulled away. Should have remembered all the reasons I'd come here alone, all the promises I'd made to myself about taking time to heal. Instead, I found myself leaning into her touch, my eyes closing as her thumb traced my cheekbone. "This is crazy," I murmured. "The best things usually are." That night, I lay in my narrow retreat bed, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment by the creek, the way she'd looked at me like I was something precious she'd found unexpectedly, the way her voice had gone soft when she called me exactly enough. The way my heart had responded to her touch, like it was remembering how to beat properly. I'd come here to learn to be alone. Instead, I was discovering what it felt like to be truly seen. The next morning's meditation was torture. I sat in the circle, supposedly focusing on my breath, but all I could think about was Genevieve 3 cushions over, the way she'd smiled at me when I'd walked in, the note she'd slipped me during breakfast, garden path, after lunch, trust me. Sister Margaret talked about letting go of attachments, about finding peace in solitude. Meanwhile, I was developing a very specific attachment to a woman who collected sunsets in her camera and seemed to see through all my carefully constructed armor. The garden path led to a small clearing where someone had built a meditation labyrinth. From smooth river stones, Genevieve was sitting in the center, her camera dismantled around her, cleaning the lens with methodical precision. "You're early," she said without looking up. I've never been good at patience, I've noticed. She reassembled the camera with practiced ease, then patted the ground beside her. "Come sit. I wanted to show you something." I settled next to her, close enough that I could smell her shampoo, something that reminded me of Brain and Jasmine. She raised the camera, pointed it at the trees surrounding us, then handed it to me. "What do you see?" I looked through the viewfinder, trying to focus. "Trees, leaves, light and shadow, I guess." "Look closer. What's the light doing?" I adjusted the focus, really looking this time. It's single quotes, S dot 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 dancing, moving through the leaves like it's alive. "Now look at me." I lowered the camera, and she was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, intense, curious, almost hungry. "What do you see when you look at me?" she asked. "I see dot dot dot." I paused, struggling with words. "I see someone who isn't afraid. Someone who moves through the world like she belongs everywhere and nowhere at once. Someone who makes me want to be braver than I am. And when I look at you," she said, reaching up to touch my face again, "I see someone who's spent so long trying to be what other people needed that she's forgotten what she wants. What if I don't know what I want? Then maybe it's time to find out." This time, when she kissed me, I didn't hesitate. Her lips were soft, questioning at first, then more insistent as I responded. She tasted like possibility and rebellion, like everything I'd been afraid to want. When we broke apart, I was breathless, my heart racing like I'd just run a marathon. "This is insane," I whispered against her lips. "Probably. We've known each other for 2 days. Feels longer. We're at a silent retreat. We're supposed to be finding inner peace. I'm feeling very peaceful right now." She kissed me again, deeper this time, her hands tangling in my hair. "Aren't you?" I wanted to say yes, wanted to lose myself in the warmth of her touch and the promise in her eyes. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had been hurt and left and disappointed too many times, was screaming warnings. "Genevieve, I can't, I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "This, whatever this is. I don't know how to be casual about things that matter." She pulled back, studying my face with that photographer's eye that seemed to see everything. "Who said anything about casual?" I just dot dot. I have a track record of wanting too much too fast, of scaring people away by caring too much. "And you think you'll scare me away?" "I don't know. Maybe, probably." She was quiet for a long moment, her thumb tracing patterns on my wrist. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you've been with people who were scared of being wanted. People who confused intensity with instability, passion with problems. I think you learned to apologize for feelings that were never wrong to begin with." The words hit me like a revelation, like she'd just explained something I'd been trying to understand for years. "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been the person who was scared to be wanted. I've been the one who ran when things got real, and I've regretted it every single time. So, what are you saying? I'm saying don't apologize for wanting this. Don't apologize for wanting me because I want you to, and I'm tired of running from things that could be beautiful just because they're scary. That night, she came to my cabin, not to seduce me, not to rush anything, but to talk. We sat on my narrow bed, sharing stories and secrets like we were old friends catching up after years apart. I told her about my salon, about how I've always been good at making other people beautiful, but had never felt beautiful myself. About Claire, who'd called me needy when I'd wanted to spend weekends together, clingy when I'd suggested we move in together after a year of dating. She told me about her nomadic life, about sleeping in more hotel rooms than she could count, about how she'd convinced herself that not staying meant not getting hurt, about the loneliness that followed her like a shadow, even in the most beautiful places on earth. I've been to 57 countries, she said, her head on my shoulder as we watched the stars through my small window. I photographed sunrises over the Sahara, aurora borealis in Iceland, temple festivals in Nepal. But I've never felt as at home as I do right now in this tiny cabin with you. You're leaving after this, aren't you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I have to. I have assignments, commitments. But Scarlet ... but I don't want to. For the first time in my adult life, I don't want to leave. We fell asleep like that, fully clothed, her head on my chest, my fingers in her hair. It was innocent and intimate at the same time, a kind of closeness I'd never experienced before. When I woke up, she was gone. For a moment, I panicked, thinking she'd left entirely. But then I found the note on my nightstand, had to get back. To my cabin before Sister Margaret's dawn patrol. Meet me at the creek before breakfast. Last day, let's make it count. The retreat was ending, and we both knew it. Our last day together was bittersweet, filled with stolen glances during meditation and whispered conversations during meals. When evening came, we walked to the creek one final time, carrying the tattered quilt from my cabin. I have something for you, she said, pulling out her camera. A way to remember this week. She positioned me by the water, the sunset painting everything in gold, and started shooting. But instead of the formal portraits I expected, she captured candid moments, me laughing at something she'd said, looking thoughtful as I watched the water, the exact moment when our eyes met across the camera. My turn, I said, taking the camera from her hands. I'd never been good with technology, but something about the way she taught me to see light and shadow made it easier. I photographed her in her element dancing barefoot on the dock, her dress flowing around her like water, her hair catching, the light like fire. You're a natural, she said, looking at the images on the camera's screen. I had a good teacher. That night, we made love under the stars, the quilt spread beneath us like a foundation for something new. She was gentle and fierce at once, her hands mapping every inch of my skin like she was memorizing me. When she whispered my name against my throat, it sounded like a prayer, like a promise, like everything I'd been waiting to hear. Afterward, we lay tangled together, the quilt pulled up to our chins, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, complete, not like I was missing pieces that someone else had to provide, but like I was finally fully myself. What happens now? I asked, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Now we go back to our lives. You to your salon, me to my next assignment, and then, I don't know. I've never done this before. Done what? Fallen in love at a silent retreat. The words hung in the air between us like a gift I was afraid to accept. Love? Is that too fast? Too much? Too... I kissed her quiet, pouring 3 days of emotions into the contact. When we broke apart, I was crying, and so was she. I love you too, I whispered. I know it's crazy, and I know we barely know each other, but I love you. So, what do we do with that? I don't know. But I know I don't want to lose you. You won't. I promise you won't. But promises, I was learning, were fragile things. I drove home the next morning with her phone number in my contacts and her scent still on my skin. We texted constantly those first few days, good morning messages, random thoughts, photos of our daily lives. She was in California shooting a wedding in Napa Valley. I was back in my salon, cutting hair and pretending everything was normal. But everything wasn't normal. I walked through my days like I was sleepwalking, going through the motions of my old life while my heart was 3,000 miles away. My regular clients noticed the difference. "You're glowing," said Mrs. Henderson. My Wednesday regular. "New moisturizer?" "Something like that," I murmured, sectioning her hair. "More like someone," added Maria, the woman who rented the station next to mine. "You've got that freshly loved look." I blushed, which only confirmed her suspicions. Maria had been cutting hair for 20 years and could read people like magazines. She was also the closest thing I had to a best friend, which meant she wasn't going to let this go. "Spill," she said during our lunch break. "And don't even think about claiming it's just a good hair day." So I told her everything about the retreat, about Genevieve, about falling in love in 5 days with someone who lived like a migrating bird. Maria listened without judgment, occasionally making encouraging noises or asking clarifying questions. "So where is she now?" she asked when I finished. "Still in California. She has another assignment after this one, then something in Oregon. She's always somewhere else. And you're here moping around like a teenager." "I'm not moping." "Honey, you've been sighing like a Victorian heroine for 3 days straight. If that's not moping, I don't know what is." She was right, of course. I was moping, but I was also scared. Scared that what we'd shared was just vacation magic, the kind of intense connection that couldn't survive real life. Scared that I was doing it again, falling too hard, too fast, for someone who would eventually find me too much. The call came on a Thursday night. I was at home, eating takeout and pretending to watch TV, when my phone rang. "Scarlett?" "It's me." Her voice sounded different, tight, excited, nervous, all at once. "Hi," I said, my heart immediately picking. "Up pace. How's California?" "It's... Listen, I got an offer." "A big one?" "National Geographic wants me for a 6-month assignment documenting coastal erosion along the Pacific Northwest. It's everything I've ever wanted professionally." "That's amazing," I said, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. "Congratulations. There's more. They want me to start next month, which means I'd be leaving next week." The words hit me like a physical blow. Leaving? From here. I'd be gone for 6 months, maybe more. Remote locations, limited communication. It's the kind of assignment that can make my career. Then you have to take it. Do I? "Genevieve, this is your dream. You can't turn down National Geographic. But what about us? What about this?" Her voice cracked slightly. "I can't do long distance for 6 months. I can't ask you to wait for me when I don't even know when I'll be back." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar ache of abandonment settling in my chest. "I know. I'm so sorry, Scarlett. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to fall in love with you and then have to leave." "It's okay," I lied. "I understand." "Do you?" "Because I don't. I don't understand how I can love you this much and still be considering leaving. Because it's who you are. You move, you explore, you don't stay. I knew that from the beginning. Maybe I don't want to be that person anymore. That you are. And I don't want to be the person who holds you back from your dreams." We talked for another hour, both of us crying, both of us trying to find a solution that didn't exist. In the end, we agreed to take a break. Not a breakup, exactly, but a pause. A chance for her to pursue her career and for me to figure out what I wanted from my life. I love you, she said before hanging up. I love you too. And that was it. The end of our beginning. The next few weeks were brutal. I threw myself into work, taking on extra clients, staying late to reorganize my station, anything to avoid going home to an empty apartment that still smelled like her shampoo. My friends tried to help, but how do you explain missing someone you knew for 5 days? How do you grieve a relationship that barely had time to exist? You're being ridiculous, said my sister during one of our weekly calls. You met her at a retreat. It was a vacation fling that got out of hand. It wasn't a fling. Then what was it? I didn't know how to answer that. What do you call 5 days that changed your entire understanding of love? What do you call someone who showed you what it felt like to be enough exactly as you are? It was real, I said finally. Whatever it was real. Real doesn't pay the bills, Scarlett. Real doesn't build a life. You need to find someone local, someone stable, someone who actually wants to be with you. But I didn't want someone else. I wanted Genevieve with her wild hair and her ability to find beauty in chaos. I wanted someone who saw me as an adventure rather than a burden. The months passed slowly. I got updates occasionally, a postcard from a small coastal town, a text message with a photo of a sunset that reminded her of our evening by the creek. But they became less frequent as time went on, as her assignment consumed her days and I fell back into my old routines. I started dating again, half-heartedly. A few coffee dates, a dinner or two, nothing that sparked anything close to what I'd felt with Genevieve. Maria kept encouraging me, insisting that I needed to get back on the horse, but every potential connection felt flat, colorless compared to what I'd experienced. You're comparing everyone to her, Maria observed one particularly brutal post-date. To brief, it's not fair to them or to you. I can't help it. She ruined me for ordinary love. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. I looked at her, confused. What do you mean? Maybe she didn't ruin you. Maybe she showed you what you deserve. Maybe now you won't settle for anything less. It was an intriguing thought, but it didn't make the loneliness any easier to bear. 5 months after Genevieve left, I was closing the salon late on a Friday night when my phone rang. Unknown number, but something made me answer. Scarlett? My heart stopped. Genevieve? I'm in Portland. The assignment is almost over, and I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about what we had. Where are you calling from? A payphone. Outside a diner. I know it's crazy, but I drove 8 hours just to call you from somewhere that felt less lonely. You drove 8 hours to find a payphone? I know how it sounds, but I needed to hear your voice, and I needed to do it from somewhere that felt, I don't know, more romantic than my hotel room. Despite everything, I was smiling. You're insane. Probably. But I'm also completely desperately in love with you. And I'm tired of pretending that my career is more important than my heart. Jean Vi ... clock. I know I left. I know I hurt you. But I'm asking for another chance. I'm asking if you'll let me come back. Come back how? Your life is travel, adventure, new places. My life is here in this small town, cutting hair and living quietly. What if I told you I found a way to do both? What do you mean? I pitched a new project to National Geographic. A series on small town America, the beautiful, quiet places that people drive through but never really see. I convinced them that the real stories aren't always in exotic locations. Sometimes they're in the everyday magic of ordinary places. And they said yes. I'd be based somewhere central, traveling to small towns within a few 100 miles. I could have a home, based for the first time in my adult life. That's amazing, but what if that home base was with you? What if I moved to your small town and documented the beauty that's been right in front of me all along? I was quiet for so long that she must have thought I'd hung up. Scarlett, are you there? I'm here. I'm just dot processing. I know it's a lot to ask. I know I left and I know I hurt you. But I learned something these past few months. What? I learned that all the beautiful sunsets in the world mean nothing if you don't have someone to watch them with. I learned that home isn't a place, it's a person. And you're my person, Scarlett, if you'll have me. I was crying now 5 months of suppressed emotions finally breaking free. I don't know if I can do this again. Do what? Fall in love with someone who might leave. I'm not asking you to fall in love with me again. I'm asking you to let me prove that I'm not going anywhere. And asking for the chance to love you the way you deserve to be loved, completely, consistently, with my whole heart. And if your editor changes their mind about the project, if they want to send you somewhere else, then I'll find a different editor. I'll freelance, I'll teach workshops, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm done choosing my career over my heart. Genevieve, I know I'm asking a lot. I know trust has to be earned, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life earning it if you'll let me. The silence stretched between us, filled with 5 months of longing and hurt and hope. Where would you live? I asked finally. Wherever you are. I was thinking maybe I could rent a small studio space, something I could use as a darkroom and office. And maybe, if you're willing, I could spend some time learning what it's like to have a real home. I don't have a big place, just a small apartment above the salon. I don't need big. I just need you. What about your things? Your life in California? I never really had a life there. I had assignments, hotel rooms, rental cars, but I never had a life. Not the kind that matters. I closed my eyes, letting myself imagine it coming home to find her editing photos at my kitchen table, waking up next to her more than just once, building something real and lasting together. I'm scared, I admitted. So am I, but I'm more scared of living without you than I am of taking this risk. When would you come back? The assignment ends in 3 weeks. I could drive straight to you from Oregon, and if I say no, then I'll respect that. But I'll also spend the rest of my life regretting not fighting harder for us. I thought about the past 5 months, about the way I'd sleepwalked through my days, about the way nothing had felt quite right without her. I thought about the way she'd looked at me by the creek like I was something precious. I thought about her hands in my hair, her voice whispering my name, the way she'd made me feel like I was enough. Okay, I said. Okay, come back. Come home. But Genevieve? Yeah? If you leave again, if you decide this isn't enough, I won't survive it. I need you to be sure. I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Then come back to me. I'll see you in 3 weeks. I'll be waiting. Those 3 weeks felt like 3 years. I cleaned my apartment obsessively, rearranged furniture, bought groceries like I was preparing for a siege. Maria watched my frantic preparations with amusement. You know she's going to love you regardless of whether your bathroom tiles sparkle, right? I know. I just ... I need everything to be perfect. Why? Because I need her to want to stay. Honey, she drove 8 hours to find a payphone to call you. She quit her dream job to move to a small town. I think she wants to stay. But I couldn't shake the fear that she'd take one look at my quiet life and realize she'd made a mistake. That the reality of small town living would bore her. That I'd be too ordinary for someone who'd seen the world. The day she was supposed to arrive, I was a nervous wreck. I'd taken the day off work, spent the morning pacing my apartment, checking the window every 5 minutes like I was expecting the cavalry. She pulled up in a dusty Subaru loaded with camera equipment and cardboard boxes. I watched from my window as she got out of the car, stretched her back, and looked up at my building with an expression I couldn't read. When she knocked on my door, I nearly didn't answer. What if this was a mistake? What if we built up something in our minds that couldn't survive reality? But then she called my name, and her voice was exactly as I remembered warm, playful home. I opened the door, and there she was, thinner than I remembered, her hair longer, wearing the same paint-stained cargo pants and a flannel shirt that looked like it had crossed the country. She was holding a single sunflower and looking at me like I was the answer to every question she'd ever asked. "Hi," she said. "Hi yourself. I brought you something." She held out the sunflower. "I saw it at a gas station in Nevada and thought of you. Bright, beautiful, impossible to ignore." I took the flower, our fingers brushing in the exchange. "You drove 2,000 miles with a sunflower?" "I drove 2,000 miles for you." The sunflower was just along for the ride. And then we were kissing, right there in my doorway, 5 months of longing and uncertainty dissolving into the certainty of her lips against mine. She tasted like coffee and possibility, like everything I'd been missing. "I missed you," I whispered. Against her mouth, "I missed you too, every day, every sunset, every moment." The first few weeks were an adjustment. Genevieve was used to hotel rooms and room service. I was used to letting alone and having control over my space. She left camera equipment on my kitchen table, forgot to put the toilet seat down, and had strong opinions about my coffee maker. But she also brought flowers home every Friday, learned to make my favorite breakfast, and fell asleep every night with her head on my chest, like she was afraid I might disappear. "Are you happy?" I asked one evening as we sat on my small balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Happier than I've ever been," she said, her fingers tracing patterns on my wrist. "Are you?" "Most of the time." "What about the rest of the time?" I was quiet for a moment, trying to articulate the fear that still lived in my chest. "Sometimes I worry you'll get bored, that you'll miss the adventure, the travel, the excitement of new places." "You know what's exciting?" she said, turning to face me. "Waking up in the same bed every morning and still feeling like I'm on an adventure. Coming home to you after a day of shooting and seeing your face light up. Learning what it means to build something instead of just passing through." "Really? Really?" "Besides, I'm traveling. I've been documenting the towns within. A 3-hour drive, and there's more beauty here than I ever imagined." "Did you know there's a covered bridge about an hour north of here that's been photographed by Ansel Adams?" I laughed. "I did not know that. There's a whole world of beauty right here, Scarlett. I just needed the right person to help me see it." 6 months after she moved back, Genevieve surprised me with a proposal. Not a marriage proposal, we weren't ready for that yet, but a business proposal. "What if we combined our talents?" she said over dinner at our favorite restaurant. "Your salon, my photography. I could do headshots for your clients, document special events, maybe even offer photo sessions for families. We could call it Crimson Lens. Crimson Lens. Your salon is Crimson Cuts, right? And I work with lenses. It's perfect. We're both in the business of helping people see themselves more beautifully." I stared at her, this woman who traveled the world and was now talking about setting up a permanent business in my small town. "You'd really want to do that?" "I'd want to do anything that means building a life with you." The idea was brilliant, actually. My clients were always asking about professional photos for their social media, their dating profiles, their family portraits. And Genevieve had a gift for capturing people at their most authentic, most beautiful moments. "What would that look like practically?" I asked. "I was thinking we could renovate the space above your salon, Create a proper studio up there, maybe. Expand your services to include full beauty consultations, hair, makeup, photography packages. One-stop shopping for people who want to look and feel their best. That sounds expensive. I have savings. And I got a small advance for a book deal, a collection of my small town photography with essays about finding home in unexpected places. A book deal? She blushed. I may have already started writing it. It's called The Tattered Blanket. Finding home in small places. Don't worry, I changed all the names. I laughed, imagining my love story immortalized in a coffee table book. What did you change my name to? Rose, because you're beautiful and you have thorns, and both are necessary. And what about you? Haven't decided yet. Maybe Journey, or Compass. Something that suggests movement, but also direction. How about Haven? I suggested. Because that's what you've become for me. The look she gave me was so tender, so full of love, that I felt my throat tighten with emotion. Haven, she repeated. I like that. We spent the next hour planning our future business, sketching rough layouts on napkins, and dreaming about the life we could build together. It felt surreal, talking about 5-year plans with someone who'd never stayed anywhere longer than a few months. Are you sure about this? I asked as we walked home, my hand in hers. Really sure? Because once we start a business together, once we intertwine our lives like that, there's no going back. I don't want to go back, she said, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk to face me. I want to go forward with you. For as long as you'll have me. What if I want to have you forever? Then I guess you're stuck with me. The renovation took 3 months. We hired local contractors, spent weekends painting and choosing fixtures, argued about lighting and floor plans like we were building a home together, which in a way we were. The night before our grand opening, we sat in the new studio space, surrounded by the tools of our respective trades. My styling chair faced her camera equipment, our workstations complementing each other perfectly. I can't believe we actually did this, I said, looking around at what we'd created. I can't believe I used to think home was something you found, she replied, instead of something you build. Any regrets? Only one. My heart skipped. What? I regret that it took me so long to find you. Think of all the time we wasted living separate lives. Maybe we needed that time. Maybe we needed to know who. We were individually before we could figure out who we are together. Very wise, Rose, she said, using the name from her book. Very grounded, Haven. The grand opening was a success beyond our wildest dreams. Half the town showed up, curious about the partnership between the local hairstylist and the mysterious photographer who'd appeared one day and decided to stay. We offered mini sessions quick. Haircuts followed by professional headshots, makeovers with before and after photos, family portraits with styling consultations. By the end of the day, we were booked solid for the next month. I think we might have something here, Genevieve said as we counted the day's receipts. I think we might have everything here, I corrected, but success in business was one thing. Success in love was another challenge entirely. The first real test came 8 months later, when National Geographic called with an assignment they described as the opportunity of a lifetime. A year-long project documenting climate change in Antarctica, the kind of career-defining work that photographers dream about. You have to take it, I said when she told me about the call. No, I don't. Genevieve, this is Antarctica. This is National Geographic. This is everything you've worked for. What I've worked for is sitting right here in this room. What I've worked for is us. You can't turn down Antarctica for me. I can turn down anything for you. For us, for this life we're building. But I could see the conflict in her eyes, the way she kept fidgeting with her camera strap, the way she'd started checking photography websites obsessively. She wanted to go, and I couldn't blame her. What if we found a compromise? I suggested. What kind of compromise? What if you took a shorter assignment? Something that would satisfy your need for adventure but wouldn't completely derail our life here? They want a full year. Then tell them you'll do 6 months. Tell them you have commitments here that you can't abandon. They'll probably give it to someone else. Maybe, but maybe they'll realize that having a photographer who actually wants to come back is worth more than having one who's running away from something. She was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the main street of our small town. What would you do while I was gone? Run our business, take care of our clients. Wait for you to come back. And if I don't come back, if I get there and realize I can't live without the constant motion, the new places, the adrenaline of always being somewhere different, then I'll know I wasn't enough to hold you. Scarlett, don't say that. You're enough for everything. You're enough for a lifetime. Then prove it. Take the assignment, get it out of your system, and come back to me. What if I can't? Then at least we'll know. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering, what if? The negotiations with National Geographic took weeks. In the end, they agreed to a 6-month assignment with the possibility of extension if both parties were satisfied. Genevieve would leave in 2 months during the Antarctic summer and return in time for our first anniversary. Those 2 months were bittersweet. We worked frantically to prepare the business for her absence, training an assistant photographer, updating our website, pre-booking as many sessions as possible. But underneath the practical preparations was a current of anxiety that we both tried to ignore. Are you having second thoughts? I asked one night as we lay in bed, her head on my chest. About the assignment? No. About leaving you? Every day. Good, good. If you weren't having second thoughts, I'd be worried that leaving me was too easy. Leaving you will never be easy. But I think you're right. I need to know I can have both. I need to know I can go and still want to come back. And I need to know I can let you go and still be whole. Are you worried you won't be? I'm worried. I'll realize I've been so focused on being enough for you that I forgot to be enough for myself. The night before she left, we made love with a desperation that surprised us both. Every touch felt like goodbye, every kiss like a promise we weren't sure we could keep. I love you, she whispered against my neck. I love you too. No matter what happens, no matter how long I'm gone, that won't change. I know. Do you? Because I need you to know that even if I struggle, even if I miss the adventure, even if I question everything, I will always love you. You changed my life, Scarlett. You made me want to be someone who could stay, and you made me want to be someone who could let go. The goodbye at the airport was terrible and necessary. We clung to each other like we were drowning, and maybe we were. Drowning in the fear that this was the end, that 6 months was too long, that distance would erode what we built. Take care of yourself, she said, pulling back to look at me one last time. Take care of yourself too. And Genevieve, yeah. Take amazing photos. Make me proud. I'll make us both proud. And then she was gone, disappearing through security with her camera bag and a suitcase full of cold weather gear. I drove home in tears, already missing her, already counting the days until her return. The first month was brutal. I threw myself into work, took on extra clients, spent long hours perfecting the business we've built together, bought the apartment, felt empty without her camera equipment cluttering the surfaces, without her off-key singing in the shower, without her arms around me as I fell asleep. The second month was better. I started to find my rhythm, to remember what it felt like to be alone without being lonely. I took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected, joined a book club, started running again. By the third month, I realized something that surprised me. I was okay. Not just surviving, but actually thriving. The business was doing well. I was sleeping through the night, and I'd discovered parts of myself that I'd forgotten existed. Genevieve called, her voice crackling through the satellite connection. I had good news to share. I sold 3 paintings, I told her, practically bouncing with excitement. Paintings? You're painting now? I started a few weeks ago. Just something to keep my hands busy. But Mrs. Chun saw them when she came in for her monthly cut, as she commissioned one for her living room. Then her daughter wanted one, and her neighbor saw it and wanted one too. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. How are you doing? How's Antarctica? It's incredible. Harsh and beautiful and like nothing I've ever seen. The light here is impossible to describe. But Scarlett? Yeah, I miss you. I miss us. I miss our boring Tuesday nights and our coffee arguments and the way you hum while you work. I miss you too, but I'm okay. I'm actually better than okay. Are you saying you don't need me anymore? There was a teasing note in her voice, but I could hear the real question underneath. I'm saying I want you, not because I need you to complete me, but because I love the person I am when I'm with you. There's a difference. There is a difference. And I love you for knowing that. Are you coming back? Wild horses couldn't keep me away. The 4th month brought unexpected challenges. A pipe burst in the studio, flooding the space and destroying some equipment. A key client complained about a haircut and left a nasty review online. I got the flu and had to cancel appointments for a week. But instead of falling apart, I handled each crisis with a competence that surprised me. I called the insurance company, hired contractors, reached out to other photographers about borrowing equipment. I responded to the negative review professionally and publicly, which actually brought in more business from people who appreciated my grace under pressure. You sound different, Genevieve said during our weekly call. Different how? Stronger, more confident. Like you've remembered who you are? I think I have. I think I forgot for a while in the best way possible. I forgot that I was capable of handling things on my own. And now you remember? Now I remember that I don't need saving, I just need loving. Good, because I don't want to save you. I want to love you. There's a difference. When did we get so wise? When we stopped being afraid of losing each other and started focusing on choosing each other. The 5th month was when I knew for certain that she was coming back. Not because she told me directly, but because of the way she talked about when I get home instead of if I come back. Because she asked me to look for a larger studio space for her expanded business. Because she sent me a photo of the sunrise over the ice with the caption, "Beautiful, but not as beautiful as Sunday mornings with you." I have a confession, she said during our last call before her return. What's that? I almost extended the assignment. My heart stopped. What changed? Your mind? I realized I was asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, is this place amazing enough to keep me? I should have been asking, is there anywhere I'd rather be than home with the woman I love? And the answer to that question is no, there isn't. So you're really coming back? I'm really coming back. And Scarlett? I'm not the same person who left 6 months ago. Neither am I. Good. I can't wait to meet who we've become. The day she returned, I was a nervous wreck all over again. What if we'd grown in different directions? What if the time apart had shown us that we were better as individuals than as a couple? What if? But then she walked through. The arrival's gate, tanner and thinner, and somehow more solid than before. And the smile that spread across her face when she saw me was like coming home. You look amazing, she said, dropping her bags to hug me. You look like you've seen the end of the world. I've seen the beginning of it too. But mostly I've seen that the most beautiful view in the world is the one that includes you. That night, as we lay in our bed in our apartment, in our life, she told me about the ice and the light and the way the world looked from the bottom of the earth. And I told her about the paintings and the business and the way I'd learned to be whole on my own. I love who you've become, she said, tracing patterns on my arm. I love who you've always been, I replied. And I love who we're becoming together. What are we becoming? Partners, real partners. The kind who choose each other every day, not because we have to, but because we want to. I want to ask you something, she said, her voice suddenly serious. Ask away. Will you marry me? I sat up so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. What? Will you marry me? Not because I think we need a piece of paper to validate what we have, but because I want to stand up in front of everyone we love and promise to choose you every day. For the rest of my life. Are you proposing to me in bed at midnight after talking about Antarctica? I'm proposing to you in the place where I feel most at home, at the time when I'm most honest, after realizing that I've traveled to the ends of the earth and the most beautiful thing I've ever seen is still your face when you wake up next to me. That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the most ridiculous. Can it be both? I kissed her then, long and deep and full of all the words I couldn't find. When we broke apart, I was crying again, but this time from joy, not fear. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Really, really. But I have one condition. Name it. I want to propose to you too, properly, with a ring and a plan and everything. You want to propose to me after I have already proposed to you. I want us to propose to each other. I want this to be something we're both choosing, both initiating, both committed to. I love that idea. When? Soon, but not tonight. Tonight, I just want to hold you and remember what it feels like to be complete. Are you complete? I'm whole on my own. But with you, I'm more than whole. I'm infinite. 2 weeks later, I took her to the place where it all began, Mountain Creek Temple. The retreat center had agreed to let us use the grounds for a private picnic, and I'd spent days planning the perfect proposal. I led her to the creek, to the same weathered dock where we'd first kissed, and spread out the same tattered quilt we'd slept under that first night. The late afternoon sun painted everything in gold, just like it had a year and a half ago. This is where you first asked me what I was running from, I said, taking her hands. And this is where you first let me see who you really were. I'm not running anymore, I said, pulling the ring box from my pocket. I'm not running from love or from commitment or from the possibility of being hurt. I'm running towards something instead, toward a life with you, toward a future I couldn't have imagined before I met you. Scarlet ... Let me finish. Genevieve, you taught me that love isn't about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who inspires you to complete yourself. You taught me that home isn't a place, it's a choice. And I choose you every day for the rest of my life. I opened the box, revealing a simple silver band with a small diamond that caught the light like a captured star. Will you marry me? She was crying now, ugly happy tears that made my heart sing. Yes, yes, of course, yes. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she kissed me like we were sealing a pact with the universe itself. My turn, she said, reaching into her own pocket. I know we said we'd propose to each other, but I couldn't wait. Her ring was different, a vintage piece with an intricate setting that looked like it had been crafted by hand. Beautiful, unique, perfectly imperfect. Scarlet, she said, her voice shaking with emotion, you taught me that staying isn't the same as being trapped. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone who won't leave. It's about finding someone worth staying for. You are worth staying for. You are worth every sunset I didn't chase, every assignment I didn't take, every road I didn't travel. Because the greatest adventure of my life is loving you. Will you marry me? I asked, echoing her words from the week before. I already said yes, remember? Then will you choose me? Every day, in every way, for as long as we both live. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this life we're building together. We had the wedding 6 months later in the garden behind the temple where we'd met. Nothing fancy, just our closest friends and family, string lights overhead, and the same quilt from our first night together serving as our altar cloth. My sister, who'd once called our relationship a vacation fling, cried through the entire ceremony. Maria, who'd watched me transform from a heartbroken woman into someone who glowed with happiness, served as my maid of honor. Genevieve's parents, who'd flown in from Oregon, kept taking pictures with tears in their eyes. I never thought I'd see her settle down, her mother whispered to me during the reception. She's been running from commitment her whole life. She's not settling down, I replied, watching Genevieve spin on the makeshift dance floor, her dress flowing around her like water. She's choosing to stay. There's a difference. There is a difference, and I'm glad she chose you. The local newspaper ran a feature about our wedding, calling it a modern love story and featuring photos of our combined business alongside pictures from the ceremony. The article described us as proof that love can bloom anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. But the most meaningful coverage came from an unexpected source, Genevieve's book. The Tattered Blanket was published a month after our wedding. The final chapter, titled Home, featured a photo of our hands intertwined on the quilt, with an essay about finding love in the space between solitude and togetherness. Some people think you have to choose between adventure and stability, she wrote. But I've learned that the greatest adventure is building a life with someone who makes you brave enough to be yourself. I've traveled to 57 countries, witnessed sunrises over glaciers and sunsets over deserts, photographed moments that took my breath away. But the most beautiful view I've ever captured is the one I see every morning when I wake up next to the woman I love. The book became a bestseller, not because of the photography, though that was stunning, but because of the love story woven. Throughout, we got letters from readers who said our story had inspired them to take chances, to be vulnerable, to believe in love again. Do you ever miss it? I asked her one evening as we sat on our back porch, watching the sunset paint our small town in shades of gold and pink. The travel, the adventure, the constant newness. I miss parts of it, she admitted. I miss the adrenaline of being somewhere completely unfamiliar. I miss the way new places smell, the way they sound, the way they feel under your feet. But I don't miss the loneliness. I don't miss sleeping in strange beds and eating meals alone and having no one to share the beautiful moments with. And I definitely don't miss the way I used to run from anything that felt too real, too permanent, too much like home. And this feels like home. This feels like the place I was trying to get to my whole life, even when I didn't know I was looking for it. 2 years after our wedding, we expanded the business again. Crimson Lens had become the go-to destination for beauty and photography services within a 100-mile radius. We'd added a second photographer, a makeup artist, and we're considering opening a second location. Remember when you thought you were too much for someone? Genevieve asked as we reviewed the month's bookings. I remember a lot of things about who I used to be, and now I know I was never too much. I was just with people who were too little. And I was never too restless. I was just with people who were too still. So we're perfect for each other? We're perfect for each other. But perhaps the most beautiful part of our story isn't the business success or the book deal or even the wedding. It's the ordinary moments, the way Genevieve still brings me flowers. Every Friday, the way I still pack her lunch with little notes tucked inside. The way we've learned to fight fairly and love fiercely and give each other space to grow. It's the way she's taught me that love isn't about holding on so tightly that you squeeze the life out of something beautiful. It's about creating a safe Space for someone to be themselves, to chase their dreams, to come and go as they need to, knowing they'll always choose to come back. And it's the way I've taught her that commitment isn't a cage, it's a launching pad. That having someone who believes in you, who supports your dreams, who holds down the fort while you're conquering the world, doesn't limit your adventures, it makes them more meaningful. 3 years after our wedding, on a crisp autumn evening, we found ourselves back at the creek where it all began. The same weathered dock, the same tattered quilt, the same sense of infinite possibility stretching out before us. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met? I asked, my head on her shoulder. Never, never. Because I refuse to imagine a world where we don't find each other. Maybe it wouldn't have been at the retreat. Maybe it would have been at a coffee shop or a bookstore or standing in line at the grocery store. But somehow, some way, we would have found each other. You sound very certain. I am certain. You know why? Why? Because some people are meant to be together. Not in a soulmate, destiny kind of way, but in a choice, commitment, daily decision to love each other kind of way. And we're those people, even when I'm grumpy in the morning, especially when you're grumpy in the morning, even when you leave your camera equipment all over the kitchen counter, even then, even when we're old and gray and can't remember why we fell in love in the first place, we'll never forget why we fell in love. But even if we did, we just have to fall in love all over again. And I can't think of anything I'd rather do. As I finish telling you this story, I realize that the best part isn't the ending, it's the beginning, because every day we choose each other again. Every morning we wake up and decide to love each other for another day. Every sunset we sit together and remember that we're not just surviving life, we're creating it. That tattered quilt still sits on our bed. It's more worn now, softer, marked by years of love and laughter and the occasional tear. But it's still holding us together, still keeping us warm, still reminding us that sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones that have been loved well. And if you asked me what I've learned from all of this, I'd tell you that love isn't about finding someone who fits perfectly into your life. It's about finding someone who makes you want to build a life worth sharing. It's about finding someone who sees all your broken pieces and helps you turn them into something beautiful. It's about finding someone who doesn't complete you because you were never incomplete to begin with, but who inspires you to become the fullest version of yourself. It's about finding someone who doesn't fix you, but who loves you enough to hold space while you fix yourself. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find that person at a silent retreat where you're both running from something, and you realize that the best adventures aren't about escaping your life, they're about running toward it together. Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most ordinary moments. A glance across a crowded room, a whispered conversation by a creek, a choice to stay when everything in your history tells you to run. Sometimes love is as simple as two people deciding that whatever comes next, they'd rather face it together than apart. Sometimes all you need is a tattered blanket and the courage to wrap yourselves in it, knowing that the warmth doesn't come from the fabric. It comes from the decision to share it with someone who makes you brave enough to call someplace home. And that, my friends, is how a woman who is running from love learned to run toward it instead. How a woman who thought she was too much found someone who thought she was exactly enough. How two people who had spent their whole lives leaving learned to stay. How we learned that the most beautiful view in the world isn't from the top of a mountain or the edge of a glacier. It's the one you see when you wake up next to the person you've chosen to love every day for the rest of your life. The end. The woman's voice fades into a comfortable silence, leaving behind the gentle sound of evening settling over a small town where two people chose each other and keep choosing each other one sunset at a time.